Vipassana is a widely discussed meditation technique that was rediscovered by Gautam Buddha and then taught by him as a practical tool for liberation. In India, during the peak of Buddhism, particularly during the time of Emperor Ashoka, it was commonplace for the citizens to practice it on a daily basis. However, as centuries passed, this slowly eroded away and the technique practically disappeared from the region. The technique is said to have been preserved in its original form through an unbroken lineage of teachers in Myanmar. An Indian businessman called S.N. Goenka was troubled with severe migraines during the 20th century, for which he could not find relief. In search of a cure, he travelled extensively and eventually went to Myanmar, where he met his teacher Sayagyi Uba Khin. Under his guidance, S.N. Goenka practiced Vipassana for 14 years, during which his health improved and his understanding of the technique deepened. In 1969, S.N. Goenka came back to India and started teaching Vipassana. He introduced the 10-day standardized residential program that is still taught across the world. There are about more than 260 centers and 150 temporary centers around the world. I will be sharing some information about this 10-day program and the underlying philosophy before I share my own takeaways as a student and as a volunteer. The teachings and the techniques are disseminated through these 10-day Vipassana courses held at designated Vipassana centers. These centers are located on the outskirts of a city, usually close to nature, to facilitate the restorative effects of nature and to create an environment of quietude and calm. This is not a vacation, neither this is a chill, relaxing getaway. This is hardcore, intense stuff. Your day will start at 4 a.m. and it'll be lights out at 9:30 p.m. This is what a daily schedule looks like. You are required to meditate for 10 hours every day across spaced intervals. You are provided only vegetarian sattvic food. You do not have access to your phone, the internet, or any reading material. You're not even allowed to exercise or talk to other meditators in the camp. Moreover, you're not even allowed to make any eye contact. Essentially, there is complete destimulation. Nothing to do except meditate, eat, listen to the daily discourse in the evening, and importantly, really just listen and pay attention to your mind. Participants, or more appropriately students, are not allowed to leave the camp premises. Once you're there, you're simply there for 10 days. Attending these courses is also completely free. So once you complete the course, you can make a donation if you want to, but there is no compulsion. After attaining nirvana or enlightenment, Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths. Dukkha, life is suffering. Samudaya, aversion and desire cause attachment, which is the origin of suffering. Nirodh, this attachment can be severed or ended. And Marg, the Noble Eightfold Path. The Noble Eightfold Path says that if you have the right view, right resolve, right speech, right conduct, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right samadhi, you can achieve enlightenment. Everything emanates from this original framework. Knowledge alone does not bring about an understanding. Hence, S.N. Goenka emphasized experiential learning, where the mind is prepared to enter into this meditative state. Mere conceptual understanding will not bring about the change that we seek. During the first 3 days of the camp, you practice Anapan meditation, which is a form of breath work, and then on the 4th day, Vipassana is taught. I won't be sharing much information about the how-to aspect of the meditation technique, since it is not advised to practice it by yourself. Adverse effects during or after the meditation practices is not uncommon. Also, it may happen in people with no history of prior mental health troubles. Hence, it's better to do it in a safe environment. It's been 5 years since I attended the course as a student, and I feel like I've had a lot of time to process that whole experience and see how it's changed my personhood. I remember at that time I had just finished my bachelor's in technology and I was transitioning to a different field of area. So it was a time of uncertainty and an anxious time, to be honest. But I had read about Vipassana and I wanted to do it since a year. I had been doing these 10-minute mindfulness sessions on this app called Headspace, and I wanted to transition to the big league, and Vipassana looked like a challenge. It's pretty hard the way I had read about it online, and I like doing hard things. I think the one thing that changed the most was my perception of my own likes and dislikes. I realized that most of them had been acquired by some external agency purely due to chance, and we cling on to these likes, dislikes, preferences, and we make them a part of our identity. So I really got a chance to look at my own preferences and see how they were not really mine. We live in duality all the time. It's either feeling depressed or excited, we're alone, or we're connected. We're never there, we're never in the middle. And Vipassana is right there at the center. So, centeredness was another takeaway that I got. That being said, I also realized that we're all humans and we all have our own fears, insecurities, and it's okay the way that you are. I think acceptance was another major takeaway for me. You don't have to be too critical of everything that you're doing, your posture, the way you're speaking, whether you're keeping up with goals or not. We put too much pressure on ourselves. Openness to new experiences. One particular incident comes to my mind is that probably on the fifth or the sixth day, I was having lunch after a very strong, intense session of Vipassana. I probably cried, it's very common. And I've always had an aversion towards malai or the cream that forms on hot milk. It just makes me nauseous. I don't know, I was feeling courageous. I just took that glass of milk and I just started drinking it and I drank it whole. The entire time, I was really focused on the sensory experience, the way my body was reacting. I did not try to put a mental label on it. And somehow it worked. And ever since then, I've not had any food aversions and I'm open to eating all kinds of food. That experience actually brought about a new personal philosophy that I tend to follow. Be like water. Just keep moving down the stream, and there may be rocks or obstacles that will deter you, but not for long. And the best part about it is that my name is Nadish, which is also synonymous with river, so maybe that comes naturally to me. After my first course ended, I was very regular with my meditation practice, morning, evenings, and I did that for about 3 months. So I had a urge to go for another course. And serendipitously, they did not have enough volunteers, so they asked me to volunteer, and I said yes. Overall, it was such a rewarding experience. You get so many responsibilities. I used to get up at 3:30 to ring the bell and wake everyone up and then serve food, maintain, oversee that everyone maintains the decorum of the camp, help anyone in need, uh, put up seats, clean a little bit. There were a lot of responsibilities, but it was an amazing experience. You don't get to meditate as much, but nonetheless, you still have time. And by the end of the day, I was truly, truly exhausted. Volunteering also allowed me to firsthand just see how much suffering there is. Buddha's first noble truth that life is suffering. I really realized that at that time. There was this one policeman who had just retired, and immediately after his retirement, he was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer. And there was this NRI dude who had been a drug addict for about 10 years, and he was on his road to recovery now. And you get to listen to all these stories and just see how much people are in pain and how much they're trying to get better. It kind of builds an empathic understanding. That's the most important thing that stayed with me after that course. I also began to realize that the transformation that we may seek may or may not happen. I remember this one particular instance where after dinner, all the volunteers and the teacher had gathered together for a meeting. We used to do that every day to discuss the day's business, what went wrong, what went right. And we were sitting in the hall, and on the left corner, I saw this cushiony white chair that was covered with a white sheet on top. And I just inquired that what is this about? Why does this have a sheet on it? And there was another person who was there who was probably a senior meditator, also someone who had funded a lot of, who had donated a lot of his money to the organization. And he said that when the center was starting during its inauguration, S.N. Goenka had come here and he sat on that chair. And so we've kind of preserved it. And he was just talking about him in such an ecstatic tone. And I was thinking that this is exactly what S.N. Goenka does not preach, right? So there's always a watering down of a teaching. A teacher wants to impart something, but the student will interpret it in a different manner. To anyone who wants to go for this course, my advice would be just follow the rules. There's no point in going if you're not going to experience it in the way it's meant to be experienced. There was this one person in my course who sneaked in his phone, and on the third or the fourth day, he said he wanted to get out, he wanted to leave. They did not allow, so on the fifth day, he just climbed over the gates and ran away. So if you're not planning to go anytime, I strongly recommend that you do. And if you're already planning to go, I wish you the best of luck.